Emma didn't have enough money to feed herself. Yet when she saw the shivering man digging through the trash behind the restaurant, she walked back into the kitchen, packed her last meal, the only food she had for the entire day, and placed it in his trembling hands. He looked up at her with eyes full of shame. She looked at him with eyes full of compassion. Neither spoke. Neither knew the other's story. But as she turned to walk away, trying to ignore the hunger twisting her stomach, the homeless man whispered words she didn't understand. Kindness this pure is rare. Hours later, the entire city would learn the truth she didn't. The man she fed was not homeless at all. He was a billionaire, hiding from the world, testing the hearts of those around him after losing faith in humanity. And that poor waitress, the girl who gave away the little she had, was about to become the miracle he never knew he needed. Before we begin, if you believe that one sincere act of kindness can rewrite a destiny, then like this story, subscribe for more life-changing tales, and comment where you're watching from. Because what happens next proves that one act of goodness can rewrite a destiny. The rain had just stopped when Emma Brooks finished her late shift at Sunrise Diner. The neon lights outside flickered weakly, reflecting off puddles on the cracked pavement. Inside, the kitchen smelled of fried onions and old cooking oil, a smell Emma had gotten used to during the long hours she spent there. She wiped her forehead with a tired sigh. It had been another exhausting day. 5 tables walked out without tipping. 2 customers insulted her for bringing their food late. Her supervisor yelled at her because she took too many breaks, even though she took none. But Emma didn't complain. She never did. This job was the only thing keeping her afloat. Every dollar she earned went toward her mother's medication, the overdue rent, and the growing list of bills that never seemed to end. Tonight, she hadn't eaten anything since morning. She had saved one small meal, just a simple bowl of rice and vegetables, to take home. It was all she had left until the next shift. She wrapped the meal carefully and placed it in her backpack. As she stepped outside to lock the back door, she froze. There beside the dumpster crouched a man, his clothes torn, hair matted, face shadowed by dirt and exhaustion. He was digging through the trash, searching desperately for something to eat. Emma's heart clenched. She knew hunger. She knew the feeling of going to bed with an empty stomach. She knew what it meant to be invisible. The man looked up abruptly when he sensed her presence. His eyes, untired yet strangely sharp, locked onto hers. Embarrassment washed over his face and he quickly looked away, continuing to dig as if pretending she wasn't there would preserve whatever dignity he had left. Emma stepped closer. "Sir, are you hungry?" The man flinched at her voice. I'm fine," he whispered, though his shivering hands betrayed him. Without thinking twice, Emma took her backpack off, opened it slowly, and pulled out her last meal. She knelt beside him and held it out. "Here, please take this." He shook his head. "No, it's yours." Emma offered a gentle smile, one carved from years of choosing kindness despite having little. "I'll be okay. You need it more." The man stared at the container, his eyes beginning to glisten. "Why would you give a stranger your food?" Emma shrugged lightly. "Because someone should." He swallowed hard, voice trembling. "People don't help me. They look at me and walk away." "Then tonight is different," she said softly. The man slowly reached for the food with shaking hands. The moment he touched it, he paused, as if absorbing the warmth, the generosity, the care behind such a small act. He whispered, "Kindness this pure is rare." Emma smiled again, stood up, and began to walk away, clutching her empty backpack. Hunger twisted her stomach, but she ignored it. "Wait," the man suddenly said. "What is your name?" She turned slightly. Emma Brooks." He stared at her as though memorizing the name. "Thank you, Emma. You don't know what you've done." Emma gave a tiny nod. "Take care, sir." She walked off into the dim night, unaware that the stranger behind her wasn't just watching her leave. He was studying every detail about her voice, her kindness, her innocence, because she didn't know the truth. The man she fed wasn't homeless, wasn't helpless, wasn't who he seemed. He was Lorenzo Hale, The reclusive billionaire who vanished from the public eye after being betrayed by everyone around him. And what Emma did that night would change both their lives forever. Lorenzo Hale didn't sleep that night. He sat on the narrow bed inside the abandoned building he'd chosen as his temporary hideout, staring at the untouched container of food Emma had given him. He had seen people run from rain, but not from responsibility. He had seen people chase money, but not humanity. He had seen donors pose for cameras while ignoring the hungry child beside them. But tonight, he saw something different, someone different. A girl who had nothing, yet gave him her last meal without hesitation. He replayed the moment in his mind over and over. Her soft voice, her tired eyes, her gentle smile. He had spent months wandering the city disguised as a homeless man, trying to understand why people had become so cold. But Emma's kindness shattered the hard shell forming around his heart. Early the next morning, Lorenzo changed out of the torn clothes he used as a disguise and into plain but clean ones from his travel bag. He tucked the container into his jacket, not because he needed the food, but because he couldn't bring himself to let go of the only moment of humanity he'd felt in months. Today, he was going to find Emma Brooks, not to pay her back, but to understand the kind of heart she carried. He walked back to Sunrise Diner just as the staff began preparing for the morning shift. Through the window, he saw cooks flipping pancakes and waitresses refilling condiment bottles. But Emma wasn't there. He stepped inside cautiously. The manager, a stout man with a permanent frown, rushed forward. "Sir, we're not open yet. I'm looking for someone," Lorenzo said calmly. "Emma Brooks," the manager scoffed. "Emma? What do you want with that girl?" Lorenzo raised an eyebrow. "That girl? She's late again," the manager grumbled. "Says she takes the night shift, then shows up looking half dead. I'm this close to firing her." Lorenzo's fist tightened at his side. He kept his voice even. "Is she okay?" The manager shrugged. "Her mom's sick. Rent overdue. Probably can't afford breakfast." He smirked. "Honestly, I don't know why she still tries. Some people aren't meant for better things." Lorenzo's jaw clenched. If only this man knew who he was talking to. Instead of responding, Lorenzo stepped outside and scanned the street. He didn't know where she lived, didn't know her routine, didn't even know her age. But he remembered her eyes, her sincerity, and he knew people like her always walked with purpose. He followed the directions she had walked last night, past the cracked sidewalks, the tiny grocery stalls, the bus stop with peeling paint. He asked a few shop owners along the road if they knew an Emma Brooks. Most shook their heads. Some hesitated, until one elderly woman at a fruit stall said, "Emma, sweet girl, lives 2 streets down, in the blue building with the broken balcony." "Why are you looking for her?" Lorenzo smiled politely. To return a kindness. When he reached the building, he understood. The place was falling apart. Roof leaking, staircase rusted, walls stained with years of neglect. He climbed carefully until he reached the last door on the top floor. He knocked softly. "Who is it?" A young voice called from inside, tired, cautious. "It's, someone who owes you a thank you," Lorenzo replied. The door cracked open. Emma appeared, still in her wrinkled diner uniform from the night before. Her eyes were swollen from lack of sleep. Behind her, Lorenzo saw a small living room with peeling wallpaper and a woman coughing weakly on a worn-out sofa. Emma's eyes widened in confusion. You're the man from last night," she whispered. She looked behind him, expecting the shopping cart, the torn jacket, the dirt-stained hat. But instead she saw a clean shirt, clear eyes, a calm posture. "You look different," she said carefully. Lorenzo rubbed the back of his neck. "I wanted to return your container. And to check if you're all right." Emma blinked, surprised. "You didn't have to come all the way here." His gaze softened. "I did." A harsh cough echoed from inside. Emma hurried to her mother, gently rubbing her back. "Mom, breathe slowly." "That's it." Lorenzo stepped inside without thinking. "Is she sick?" Emma nodded. "Asthma. Gets worse when she's stressed. I'm trying to save for her medication, but Her voice faded. He looked around the room. The empty shelves, the stack of unpaid bills, the single blanket covering Emma's mother. "How long has she been like this?" he asked quietly. "A few months," Emma said, "but the inhaler is too expensive now. I've been trying to manage with home remedies." Lorenzo swallowed, his chest tightening. This girl had given him her last meal, while her mother was gasping for air at home. "Emma," he said softly, "why didn't you tell me?" She shook her head. "Why would I?" "You needed the food. That's what mattered last night." Lorenzo stared at her, really stared. This wasn't just kindness. This was sacrifice. This was purity. This was something he thought no longer existed in the world. Before he could speak, Emma's mother's breathing worsened. Emma rushed to prepare hot water, panicking. Lorenzo stepped forward immediately. "Emma, let me help," he said urgently. "No, no," she protested. "You've done enough." He cut her off gently. "Please, let me." He picked up the inhaler on the table. Empty, expired. His heart twisted. Emma stood frozen, helpless, tears welling in her eyes. Lorenzo placed a steady hand on her shoulder. "We're going to the hospital right now." "But no excuses," he said firmly. "She needs help immediately." Emma looked at him, really looked, and for the first time, she didn't see a homeless stranger. She saw a man who spoke with quiet authority, a man who looked like he wasn't used to hearing no, a man who seemed safe. She nodded slowly. "Oh, okay." Lorenzo carefully carried her mother in his arms, as if she weighed nothing, and Emma hurried beside him. What she didn't know was simple. She had saved him last night. Today, he was about to save her, and soon the truth about who he really was, would shake her world in ways she never imagined. The taxi Lorenzo flagged sped through the city, its old windows rattling with every bump in the road. Emma sat in the back seat holding her mother's hand, whispering softly, "Just hold on, Mom. Please hold on." Her voice wavered with fear she tried desperately to hide. Lorenzo sat beside her, holding Emma's mother steady in his arms. He kept glancing at Emma, not because he was worried she'd panic, but because he could feel her heart breaking with every wheeze her mother struggled through. The taxi screeched to a halt in front of St. Louis Medical Center. Lorenzo jumped out and carried her mother through the doors while Emma paid the driver with the last few crumpled notes in her uniform pocket. Inside, the nurses looked up, startled by the urgency in Lorenzo's voice. "She needs help immediately. Severe asthma attack. Her inhaler is expired." They sprang into action, guiding her mother onto a stretcher and rushing her into an emergency room. Emma tried to follow, but a nurse held her back. "Please wait outside. We'll update you soon." Emma's legs gave out. She sank onto a plastic chair, shaking, her face pale with worry. Lorenzo sat beside her, but she didn't seem to notice. Her eyes were fixed on the emergency room doors, fear swallowing every bit of strength she had left. She whispered, barely audible, "Why is life so unfair?" Lorenzo turned toward her. "Emma, my mom works so hard," Emma continued, tears pooling. "She never asked for anything. And still, life keeps hurting her." Lorenzo's chest tightened. Her pain was raw, untouched by bitterness, yet deep enough to drown her. He said softly, "I'm here. You're not alone." For the first time since meeting him, Emma broke down. She buried her face in her hands, her shoulders shaking as silent sobs escaped. Lorenzo hesitated for a moment, then gently placed his arm around her, pulling her into a steady, reassuring embrace. Emma stiffened, surprised, but then melted, resting her head against his shoulder. She didn't know who this man truly was. She didn't know his world, his wealth, or the tragedy he was hiding. All she knew was that right now, she wasn't carrying the burden alone. After 20 minutes that felt like years, the doctor stepped out. "Are you the family?" Emma shot to her feet. Yes, I'm her daughter. Is she okay?" The doctor nodded. "She's stable now. We gave her oxygen and medication. But listen carefully." Emma's heart pounded. "What is it?" "Her condition is worsening. She needs long-term treatment, new inhalers, a series of tests, and possibly a breathing machine for nighttime support." Emma's face fell. How much will that cost?" The doctor hesitated. "It won't be cheap. I'm sorry. Emma felt the air leave her lungs. She didn't even have enough to buy a proper dinner. How would she afford a breathing machine? Tests? Medication? She looked down, whispering hopelessly, "I can't pay for all of that." Before the despair could sink deeper, Lorenzo spoke firmly, with the authority of someone used to being obeyed. "Doctor, schedule every test she needs and get her the best treatment plan available." Emma spun around, stunned. No, you can't." "Yes," Lorenzo cut in. "I can." She shook her head frantically. "You don't understand. I can't accept more from you. You're just a stranger I helped one night." Lorenzo stepped closer, his eyes holding a truth he still wasn't ready to reveal. "Emma, no act of kindness is small. You gave me your only meal when you were hungry. Let me help you now." "But I can't repay you," she whispered. Lorenzo shook his head gently. "I'm not asking for repayment. I'm asking for the chance to give you what you deserve. Peace." Emma looked overwhelmed. "Why are you doing this? Why do you care so much?" He opened his mouth, then closed it. He couldn't tell her. Not yet. He couldn't say, "Because I am Lorenzo Hale, the billionaire every newspaper talks about. Because I've watched people love me for money, not kindness. Because you showed me more humanity in one night than I've seen in years." So he said instead, "Because some people deserve help, and you're one of them." Emma stared at him for a long moment, then slowly nodded, tears falling silently. The doctor left, and Emma stepped inside her mother's room. Lorenzo lingered in the hallway, hands in his pockets, heart full of thoughts he couldn't escape. As he watched Emma stroke her mother's hair, whispering that everything would be okay, Lorenzo realized something undeniable. This girl, this waitress who gave her last meal to a nobody, had awakened something in him he thought he had lost. Respect, warmth, hope. And in that quiet moment, he made a silent vow. He would remain by her side. He would protect her. And when the right time came, she would learn the truth that would change everything. Because Emma Brooks had unknowingly changed a billionaire's heart. And soon her own life was about to change too, in ways far beyond anything she imagined. Emma spent the next few hours beside her mother's bed, whispering soft prayers and gently tucking the blanket around her. Every few minutes, she would glance at the door, unsure whether Lorenzo had left or was still waiting outside. But he hadn't left. He stood right there in the hallway, pacing slowly, checking the time, asking nurses for updates. Not out of obligation, but out of a strange, newfound protectiveness he didn't fully understand. When Emma finally stepped out, exhausted but relieved, he straightened immediately. "How is she?" "She's sleeping," Emma whispered. "The medication is working for now." Lorenzo nodded, then noticed the tremble in her hands. "Emma, when was the last time you ate?" She blinked as if the question confused her. I'm fine." "Emma," he said more firmly, "you gave me your last meal last night, remember?" She lowered her eyes. He continued gently. "Come with me. Just 10 minutes. You need food." "I can't leave my mom." "I'll get the food and bring it here," he offered. "Just tell me what you want." Emma shook her head again. "Nothing. I'm okay." Lorenzo exhaled, exasperated but soft. "You keep saying that, but you're not okay." Her shoulders sagged, her voice cracked. "If I fall apart, who's going to take care of her?" The words stabbed Lorenzo in the chest. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "You don't have to carry this alone anymore." Emma looked up, startled, because she could feel he meant every word. This wasn't pity. This wasn't charity. This was something else. Something she wasn't sure she deserved. Before she could respond, a nurse approached. "Sir, are you Emma Brooks?" Emma tensed. "Yes." The nurse held a clipboard. "We need a signature for your mother's long-term treatment plan." Emma reached for the papers, but Lorenzo placed a calm hand over hers. "I'll handle it." "No," Emma protested quietly. "These are my responsibilities. I can't keep letting you—" "You're not letting me," he said softly. "I'm choosing to." Emma's breath hitched. Their eyes held for a second too long. The nurse, noticing the tension, cleared her throat. "We can finish the paperwork in my office." As the nurse walked away, Emma whispered, "Why? Why are you doing all this? Lorenzo hesitated before answering, because the truth felt dangerous, because he wasn't ready to reveal who he was, because her kindness had broken something open in him that he didn't know how to explain. He said the only thing that felt honest, because I don't want to see you suffer alone. Emma's eyes softened, but before she could speak, her stomach growled loudly in the quiet hallway. She turned crimson. Lorenzo tried not to smile. I knew it, he said gently. I'm bringing you food. No arguments. Emma opened her mouth to protest, but he raised a hand. I'll be back in 10 minutes. Stay with your mom. And just like that, he walked away. But this time, Emma found herself watching him leave. Not with suspicion, not with confusion, but with something warmer, something she hadn't felt in a long time. Trust. Lorenzo stepped out of the hospital and made a call. The first real call he'd made since disappearing into the city months ago. The person on the other end nearly dropped the phone. Mr. Hale? Sir, where have you been? The board is panicking. I need food delivered to St. Louis Medical Center, Lorenzo said calmly. Healthy meals, enough for a week, and a private room prepared for a patient named Margaret Brooks. The man stammered, A private room? Sir, that requires... Just do it, Lorenzo cut in, his voice carrying the silent authority of a man the world obeyed. And don't mention my name to anyone. Yes, Mr. Hale. Right away. When he returned to the hospital carrying a tray of warm food, he saw Emma sitting outside the room, hugging her knees, staring at the floor. He sat beside her and placed the tray in her lap. I didn't know what you liked, so I got everything. Emma looked at the food. Grilled chicken, fruit, vegetables, warm bread. She hadn't seen a meal that good in years. Her eyes filled instantly. Lorenzo, I can't take this. You're not taking it, he said gently. You're eating it. Emma's hands shook as she picked up the fork. She took one small bite and broke into tears. Lorenzo panicked. Emma, what's wrong? Between tears, she whispered, It's just been so long since someone cared. His chest tightened painfully. Softly, carefully, Lorenzo reached out and wiped a tear from her cheek. Get used to it, he whispered, because I'm not going anywhere. Their eyes locked again. Deeper this time, almost trembling with something neither understood. But before either could speak, a new voice echoed down the hallway. There he is! That's him! Emma and Lorenzo turned sharply. Two hospital administrators hurried toward them. One pointed directly at Lorenzo. Mr. Hale, your board has been searching everywhere for you. Emma froze. Lorenzo froze. The truth had finally caught up. Emma whispered, stunned. Mr. Hale! Her voice shook. Her eyes widened. Her world tilted. Lorenzo's secret was out, and nothing would be the same again. Emma's breath caught in her throat as the administrators hurried toward them. Their voices filled the hallway with urgency, but Emma barely heard anything except the name echoing in her mind. Mr. Hale. She turned slowly toward Lorenzo, her heart pounding so loudly she could barely think. Lorenzo, what are they talking about? She whispered. Lorenzo opened his mouth, but before he could answer, the first administrator rushed forward. Sir, the entire board has been in chaos for weeks. You vanished without warning. No calls, no messages, nothing. Investors were threatening to pull out. Your company almost collapsed. Emma felt her pulse tremble. She looked at Lorenzo again, really seeing him. His posture, his calmness, the way people addressed him. He wasn't just someone used to responsibility. He was someone used to power. The second administrator shook his head in disbelief. Mr. Hale, you can't keep doing this. The world needs to know you're alive. Emma felt the ground sway beneath her. Mr. Hale? She repeated softly. As in, the billionaire? The one that disappeared? Lorenzo met her gaze, eyes full of guilt, and something else. Fear. Emma, he said quietly, I was going to tell you. She stepped back, breath unsteady. You? You're Lorenzo Hale? The billionaire they've been searching for? He nodded slowly. Yes. The food tray trembling in Emma's hands nearly slipped. The man she fed behind a dumpster. The man she pitied. The man she helped with her last meal. Was one of the richest men in the country. Her eyes filled with hurt. Why? she whispered. Why were you pretending to be homeless? The administrators exchanged confused glances, but Lorenzo didn't take his eyes off Emma. I needed to remember what real humanity looks like, he said softly. I was surrounded by greed, lies, and people who used me. I was losing myself, so I walked away from everything. Emma swallowed, trying to process it. So you disappeared? Yes. He stepped closer. And the night you found me, I was ready to give up on people entirely. Emma blinked, tears collecting. She didn't understand everything, but she understood pain. She understood loneliness. So I met you, Lorenzo continued, voice trembling slightly. A girl with nothing, who still gave everything she had. Emma shook her head, overwhelmed. You lied to me. I hid the truth, he corrected gently, but not to deceive you, to protect you, and to protect what I felt. Her chest tightened. What you felt? Lorenzo's voice dropped to a whisper. Emma, I didn't fall for you because you fed me. I fell for you because you're the only person who has cared about me without wanting anything in return. Emma froze. This wasn't the voice of a billionaire. This wasn't the voice of a stranger. This was the voice of a man who had needed someone too, but she was still hurting. You let me worry about you, she whispered. You let me think you were starving. You let me... I know, he said, stepping closer. And I'm sorry, truly. But Emma, every moment I spent with you was real. Her lips trembled. I just need time. Lorenzo exhaled in relief, nodding. Then take all the time you need. I will wait. I'm not leaving. Just then, a nurse rushed out of the room. Emma, your mother is awake. She's asking for you. Emma gasped and hurried inside. But before she entered, she looked back at Lorenzo. One brief, lingering look. Not anger, not rejection, just confusion, and maybe hope. Lorenzo watched her disappear into the room, his heart twisting. Then he whispered to himself, I'll earn your trust, no matter how long it takes. Emma rushed into her mother's room, her heart pounding as she closed the door gently behind her. Margaret Brooks lay propped against the pillows, breathing softly, her eyes half open but full of warmth when she recognized her daughter. Mom, Emma whispered, sitting beside her and taking her hand. You scared me. Margaret smiled weakly. I'm too stubborn to leave you so soon. Emma laughed through tears, brushing her thumb across her mother's knuckles. How do you feel? Tired, Margaret admitted, but better, because you're here. And because that young man, Lorenzo is it? He took good care of us. Emma stiffened. Margaret watched her daughter's expression shift and raised a brow gently. What happened? Emma hesitated, then took a deep breath. Mom, he's not who we thought he was. Margaret blinked. What do you mean? He's not homeless. He's not struggling. He's not ordinary. Emma swallowed hard, the words still unbelievable. He's Lorenzo Hale, Mom, the missing billionaire the news keeps talking about. Margaret's eyes widened. The billionaire? The one who vanished earlier this year? Emma nodded. Margaret leaned back against her pillow, genuinely stunned. Well, I never saw that coming. Emma let out a shaky laugh. Me neither. Margaret studied her carefully. And how does that make you feel? Emma looked down at her hands. Confused, angry, embarrassed. I mean, I fed him my last meal, Mom, and he stood there letting me treat him like he had nothing. Margaret squeezed her hand. Emma, kindness doesn't get measured by who receives it. It shines because of who gives it. Emma lifted her head slowly. He didn't trick you for pleasure, Margaret continued softly. He was trying to see the world without his title, and he found you, a girl who gave from a place of emptiness. Emma's eyes filled again, but this time with something gentler. Why does it hurt then? Because trust was involved, Margaret said, and trust is fragile. Emma looked at the wall, her thoughts drifting back to Lorenzo's face when the truth spilled out. The guilt, the fear of losing her, the sincerity in his voice when he said he fell in love with her heart. Margaret touched her chin. Emma, what do you want? Emma swallowed. I want to keep my dignity. I want to be respected. I don't want to be someone he pities or someone everyone whispers about. Margaret smiled lovingly. Then make your choice from strength, not from fear. Before Emma could respond, the door opened quietly. Lorenzo stood there. But this time, he wasn't alone. 2 bodyguards stood behind him, trying not to intrude, and the hospital director walked at his side, bowing respectfully. Mr. Hale, your suite is ready. No, Lorenzo said firmly, raising a hand. Emma's mother gets the suite. Move her now and send the best respiratory specialist to review her case. The director blinked, stunned. Yes, sir. Right away. Emma watched the entire scene in disbelief. Lorenzo dismissed the staff politely and stepped further into the room, the air thick with unspoken emotions. His eyes searched Emma's, gently, carefully. Emma, he said softly, may I talk to you for a moment? Margaret smiled knowingly and waved a hand. Go on, I need rest anyway. Emma stood slowly and stepped outside with Lorenzo. The hallway felt too quiet, too intimate. Lorenzo spoke first. I moved your mom to a private suite, he said softly. I've arranged for her treatment. You won't have to worry about a single bill. Emma shook her head. Lorenzo, I know what you're going to say, he whispered, and I'm not doing this to buy forgiveness or force gratitude. He took a breath. I'm doing it because you deserve good things, because your mother deserves good things, because your kindness saved me, and because I meant every word I told you. Emma stared at him, her heart trembling. Lorenzo's voice lowered, thick with emotion. Emma, I didn't fall in love with you because you helped me. I fell in love with you because when the world turned its back on me, you didn't. Emma's breath caught. I will give you space, he promised. I will give you time. I won't push or demand anything. I just want you to know that I'm here, and I'm not leaving. Silence stretched between them, not heavy, but soft, like something fragile being held in careful hands. Emma finally spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. I don't know how to trust you yet. Lorenzo nodded. Then I'll earn it, day by day. No rush, no pressure. Emma looked up, searching his eyes, and found no arrogance, no pride, only sincerity and quiet hope. For the first time since the revelation, she let herself breathe. Okay, she whispered. Then, start by being honest. Lorenzo's expression softened with relief. I can promise you that. He reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away. She didn't. For the first time, their fingers touched. Not as strangers, not as a waitress in a homeless man, not as a billionaire in a girl with nothing, but as 2 people trying to rebuild something new, and hope flickered between them. Because sometimes life breaks us, just to rebuild us stronger. A week later, Emma stood by her mother's bedside in the private hospital suite Lorenzo arranged. Margaret was finally breathing easier, eating better, and even teasing Emma the way she used to before illness stole her strength. Lorenzo visited daily, not to impress, not to overwhelm, but to help, quietly, consistently, sincerely. Sometimes he came with fresh flowers, sometimes with warm meals for Emma, sometimes with nothing but a gentle, "How is she today?" And slowly, Emma began to see the man behind the wealth, behind the disguise, behind the mistakes. A man who carried loneliness, she understood. A man who didn't want to be worshipped, only seen. A man who kept every promise he made to her. One evening after Margaret had fallen asleep, Emma and Lorenzo walked to the hospital garden. The night air was cool, the path lit by small ground lamps, and the world felt peaceful for the first time in a long time. Emma glanced at him. You kept your word. Lorenzo smiled softly. And I'll keep keeping it, one day at a time. She didn't respond immediately, but she took a slow breath, letting her fingers brush his, just slightly. He froze. Then she whispered, I'm not ready for forever, but I'm ready to start. Lorenzo's heart nearly stopped. Emma, that's more than enough. She smiled, a smile brighter than any wealth he owned. And in that quiet garden, under the soft glow of hospital lights, something new was born. Not a fairy tale, not a rushed romance, but a beginning built on truth, respect, and a kindness so pure it changed both their lives forever. Because Emma didn't just give him food, she gave him humanity. And Lorenzo didn't just give her support, he gave her dignity, stability, and a chance to breathe again. And sometimes, that's all two broken souls need to heal. Kindness is the only wealth that never runs out. You never know who you are helping, who you are comforting, or who you might be saving with one small act of compassion. Emma didn't feed a billionaire. She fed a hungry heart. And Lorenzo didn't save a poor girl. He honored the only person who saw him when the world no longer cared who he was. Real wealth isn't measured in money, status, or power. It's measured in the hearts we touch, the burdens we lift, and the love we give without expecting anything in return. Be kind. Even when you have little, be generous. Even when you feel unseen, because the smallest act of goodness can become the moment that changes a destiny. If this story touched your heart, don't just scroll away. Give this story a like, subscribe for more emotional, life-changing tales, and comment where you're watching from. Your support helps these stories reach someone who may need this reminder today.